Hi, everyone, and welcome to Meetup Live. I'm Ashley Rosen, the email marketing coordinator, and today I'm joined by special guest Hilary Truong, mother-daughter relationship expert and former therapist for teenage girls, on how to nurture your maternal bonds. During this chat, you will understand the primary reason why mothers and daughters struggle in their relationship and hear about frameworks to work through obstacles and form a healthy, lifelong attachment. Learn how to meet each other's needs, show love, and communicate, even if you don't always see eye to eye. A useful lesson for any mother, daughter, or son. Before we get started, we're going to go over the guidelines and agenda. This event will be recorded, but don't worry, you will not appear in the video and your audio will be muted, so you'll only hear the panelists. The chat for the event will be turned off, but if you have any questions, please submit them in the Q&A feature on the bottom of your screen. We also have closed captioning available on the bottom of your screen. You will see a live transcript icon, and you can select your preference. So we'll start with an introduction, and then we'll go into our fireside chat, and our last 15 minutes, we'll open up Q&A. Hi, Hilary.
Hi, Ashley.
So like I said, Hilary is a mother-daughter relationship expert and a former therapist for teen girls. She's a leading voice on keeping mothers and daughters in relationships with each other. She's on a mission to rewrite the narrative for mothers and daughters and share her passion through online courses, speaking at schools and association for girls and women, and coaching mothers and daughters to heal and grow their bond, which is a really important thing. So let's start off with why mothers and children struggle in their relationship from time to time.
Well, it has everything to do with being female and, not knowing how to communicate with each other and listen to each other. It's one of the biggest struggles between mothers and daughters is daughters not feeling heard and understood. So it's as simple and complicated as that, really, is mothers being able to listen and truly understand what their daughters are saying.
I feel like a lot of times we as mothers see a lot of ourselves in our daughters, which we find a little difficult to deal with sometimes. Do you have any advice on, trying to build that open communication, especially when you feel like you're kind of butting heads with yourself?
Yeah, I think as mothers, we sometimes can see ourselves in our daughters, and then we also make assumptions about how our daughters feel or what they need and what they want from us without asking the right questions. And I think we would butt heads, like you said, a lot less if we would ask better questions and listen to the answers rather than assume that we know how they feel based on our own experiences and what we think might be happening. I think a lot of times, that's part of the conflict. The other part of the conflict is mothers often, probably most of the time, are sacrificing themselves in order to take care of their children and their family. And so they're not getting what they need. And so sometimes that conflict comes just from moms feeling like, I do all of this for you, and what's in it for me, or why are you being so difficult towards me, or why is this so hard? Because it takes so much energy and so much sacrifice from us to give. And so a lot of conflict comes from that as well.
Do you have any examples of some of these questions that we should be asking, or maybe ideas on phrasing around questioning? Like sometimes something as simple as, trying to suggest a pair of pants could really start off the day in such a way. And instead of, sometimes asking why, this is setting them off, we then set ourselves off as well.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And the morning is really hard. That's actually my example with my own daughter. That morning routine, as much as we try, it's always chaotic, right? We're always pressed for time. There's just not enough time in the morning to get things done. So when they fight us on different things or issues come up, the conflict comes along. I think number one is choosing your battles. How important are those pants to you? Is it because of the weather? Is it because of what's clean? Is it how you think she'll look in them, the appearance? So really choosing your battles. I no longer tell my daughter what to wear, how to do her hair. She gets to choose all of it. She's almost 9. And it's simply because number one, I don't want to fight with her about silly things like that. And I also want her to feel like she can express herself. She doesn't have to please me or please anyone else at school or, in the world about how she looks and how she presents herself. And that she is enough just as she is. The other part is, sometimes our daughters bring up issues. And you had said, like, what are the things that we can ask? And we have answers, right? Especially we're talking about in the morning when things are chaotic. It's like, oh, okay, we'll just do this. Or, my daughter was having an issue with a friend at school and she brought it up the next morning before we're leaving for school because she's thinking about, like, what's it going to be like when I go in? And I'm talking to her like, okay, well, maybe she feels this way. And maybe she did that because of this that's happening for her. And I'm giving her solutions and ideas about why it might be happening. And we get in the car and I look in the mirror and I notice she still seems upset. I gave her some solutions. What's going on? And I thought, I didn't ask her how she felt about it. That was my interpretation of how to solve this problem and what the problem was. So I asked her, how do you feel about this? Like, what are you feeling when you think about this problem? And having her tell me the issue that she felt like she was disappointing her friend, then we could talk about how she was feeling and what she could do to solve the problem, rather than me just slapping a couple of solutions on it when I didn't even really understand what was happening and what she needed from me.
Yeah. it- it's difficult not to throw in your own 2 cents. Um, what are some common themes and threads that run throughout mother-daughter relationships?
It really is conflict and not being able to listen to each other and understand where you're coming from. Um, Mothers, like I said before, are sacrificing themselves in favor of giving everything to their daughter. And so they are spread too thin and sometimes don't have enough to give from what their daughter needs, or they don't know how to give it because they didn't get it themselves from their own mom. They weren't taught to show their daughter love and concern in a way that involves listening and understanding how she feels. I think also the way women are treated in the world, how we're looked at as, we don't have the same amount of respect. We don't have the same role in society. And that automatically sets us up as we've got to try harder. We're not just enough as we are. We have to be someone else. We have to look a certain way, sound a certain way, act a certain way in order to be accepted. And these are all things that moms can change within themselves and teach their daughter just through modeling and their interactions with her and encouraging her to be herself, like I had shared before, by letting her dress her own way and do her hair that way and have the interest she has. Sometimes we get kind of wrapped up in how we can protect our daughter and arm her with the skills to face a world that maybe isn't going to respect her. And we forget that our daughters just also want to be loved and nurtured. Often my daughter will tell me at the end of the day, you didn't hug me today. And I thought, well, I didn't know you needed to be hugged, right? But why wouldn't she want to be hugged, right? And so it's just a reminder to slow down and, just love her and stop encouraging her to be so responsible and take on, everything and be able to do everything herself, and allow her to be a girl and just enjoy life.
That is a really big thing, knowing when they need that comfort and when they don't. And I also feel like there's a weird balance of respecting their boundaries and wanting to give them, a hug or a, a piece of affection. And how do you balance as a mom, wanting to show them that you care and that you want to give them hugs, but they don't want them, I know I cherish every moment that I get asked for a hug. And I also find myself sometimes wanting to give out those, terms of endearment, but not knowing if they'll be reciprocated as well. We're in this hard tween phase where we're kind of pushing back on, that physical connection of, hugs and even accepting being called, like a cute nickname anymore from childhood. How do parents balance, that want and need of, giving that physical attention?
Yeah, great question. Well, number one is nothing is forever. So even if she's rejecting her childhood nickname right now, it doesn't mean she always will. I'm still called by my nickname from when I was a kid. So it is probably a stage that she's growing through right now. But I think, it's always okay to ask, really. As a former therapist, I was very aware that at some point my daughter is not going to want me to hug her goodbye when we get to school, right? That she's going to be embarrassed and she's not going to want that in front of her friends. So earlier this school year, I started noticing some behavior where she was kind of rejecting my hugs. And I thought, okay, I'm going to stop because maybe this is where we are. Maybe she doesn't want this anymore. But again, she came to me and said, why aren't you hugging me anymore? And I thought, well, I should have asked her, right? I should have said, like, after school or when we were at home, hey, I noticed you seem like you're not comfortable with my hugs. When I drop you off, would you rather I didn't hug you? Is there something else we could do? It's like, just talk about it. Just have a conversation about it, right? So instead, I just assumed I knew she didn't want them. Right. And so now every day I try to give her one and she takes it, sometimes does it, most of the time she's just busy and running off to be with her friends. But she knows I'm trying, right? And it is absolutely this delicate balance that we have of, like, we don't want to do too much. We don't want to push them too far. We don't want to invade their privacy or their boundaries, right? But I think it all comes from us. It starts from us. So if we're not initiating or asking or offering, they might not be asking in return. I'm lucky where my daughter will tell me. She probably doesn't tell me every time she needs something from me, but she will ask sometimes. So it is important for us to still do that, but to check in and see how's this going? Or if you are noticing that they're pushing back, talk to them about it. What would you like instead? Should we high five? Should I hug you before we get to school? And then we just say goodbye when we get there. See where she is and what she needs.
That's great advice. And how do you feel these different phases of life, like this tween stage or, toddler phase, or even, becoming an adult, impacts how the different struggles we face with our daughters?
Yeah, there's actually stages in the mother-daughter relationship where it gets harder. And I always say we need to kind of recalibrate when we hit these new stages. And the first stage is obviously when the daughter's born. And that is a brand new stage in the relationship. And the next one is not until they enter adolescence. One of the big reasons why we struggle so much is our daughters need something different from us. And it's not necessarily less. It's not necessarily more space, more freedom to separate from us. I believe the opposite is true. They still need us just as much. It just looks different. So again, those conversations, understanding developmentally where your daughter is and what's going to be happening for her. And the stage after that is when your daughter moves out. So sometimes that's college, sometimes that's, getting her first apartment or house. You have to recalibrate and ask her, what do you need from me? How can I show up for you? How can I support you? Most likely she's going to need you a little bit less, right? She'll have her own life, friends, career, whatever. After that, it's when she gets married or has a partner. Many of us who have gotten married maybe know how stressful a life event is. And it was a stage when I was definitely butting heads with my mom in particular about how that was going to go. And really what needed to happen that I didn't know about at the time was that we needed to talk about, how can she show up for me? How can she support me? What did she need through my wedding, right? Because most moms have their own needs about what they think that's going to look like for their daughter. After that, it's when the daughter becomes a mother and the mother a grandmother. The relationship's going to change again. when the mother retires, when the mother becomes elderly, and maybe is sick, and the daughter is maybe taking care of her. So all of these stages in the relationship are known to be difficult. There is more conflict, right? And really what is at the heart of it, like I said before, is the talking and listening. What do you need from me? How can I give that to you?
With all these different stages of life, could you share some different techniques that mothers can remind themselves of, when dealing with all this different conflict and different conversations that need to be had without harming the relationship? Each stage brings different challenges, which makes it difficult to even want to approach these conversations sometimes. So do you have any like techniques or tips to, you know, help with those times?
Yeah, I always tell mothers to listen more than they talk. Because like I said before, we think we have all the answers, and we do have a lot of wisdom, of our years of experience in life. Um, but we don't necessarily always know what our daughter's thinking and what she needs from us. So I think listening more than you talk, like I said, asking directly, hey, you're about to have a baby. This is a new stage in your life and in our family, and I want to be as helpful as I possibly can. What would that look like for you? And maybe the daughter would say, I don't know, I haven't had a baby before, I have no idea what that looks like, right? Maybe you can come and stay with me for a couple of weeks, or you can come every, so often and be with the baby. But continue that conversation, because then when she has the baby, she'll probably be really clear on what she needs, and just being there for her and being able to give that to her. But I also realized that before you can really have these conversations about what you need and what your daughter needs, you have to be able to identify that. So asking for what you need is one thing, but being able to identify it is a huge part of the work. And as women, we're not so great at that. We often just take care of everything ourselves and don't ask for too much help. And so a lot of the work I do, with private clients in particular, is teaching them how to ask for what they need emotionally and who to ask for it from. And so that's, as a mother, that's not your daughter, right? Your daughter is not there to fill your emotional needs. Your partner is there to fill your emotional needs, maybe your circle of friends, your team of support, whether that's a therapist, a coach, your own mother, your father, are there to fill your emotional needs. And sometimes in my work with clients, we'll identify that they don't have anyone doing that because they're so good at doing themselves. But then they're feeling so exhausted and sacrificing themselves, and no one's taking care of them, right? So it really is important to take time to think about, what do I need emotionally? And then you'll have more energy and more room to support your daughter. And your daughter watching you have your emotional needs taken care of and tended to will teach her that that's important, and she deserves that too. It'll also teach her how to ask for what she needs because she sees you doing it.
Now, we talked a little bit about, different emotional needs at different ages. How might age affect how you handle these situations?
Yeah. So with my 8-year-old, I wouldn't talk to her about my emotional needs or her emotional needs. I wouldn't label it in that way, but I do check in daily. How are you feeling? How was today? How did you, and then she tells me, how did that make you feel? I mean, that's probably the therapist in me, but it works. And it teaches her to have emotional language to be able to express herself and work through issues with friends, because she can explain, you hurt my feelings when you did this, versus you're rude, you're mean, I hate you, those kinds of things that are super unhelpful. So with a younger kid, that's what that would look like, is teaching them emotional language and being able to talk about their feelings. With a teenager, it's really similar. Is finding time. Often with a teenager, it's in the car. You're both looking forward and not looking in each other's eyes, and they're able to talk freely about their world. I wouldn't offer much advice. I would listen. I would validate how they feel. Like, yeah, that made you really angry when she was talking to your boyfriend and you didn't know she was doing that. I get it. I would be angry too. And it kind of encouraging her to keep talking, and you can label the feelings for her that you hear. Um, and then with a college age daughter, I would be checking in with her and checking in on a regular basis, however she feels comfortable, and asking her, what does she need? Um, how is she feeling? How are things going? Um, what can you do for her? How can you support her? Sometimes college age daughters will call home when there's something huge happening and they're having a meltdown and they realize I need more support than my friends can give me. And moms don't always know how to respond. And I would say, like, I want to support you. Like, I'm 100% on your side. How do I do that? Like, what would feel helpful? And maybe she won't know. And you can ask, well, what if I did this or if I did that? Um, Girls want to know. I just had a session with a college girl, and her thing was, I want to know that my mom is going to keep it between us, that I can trust her, that she's going to listen to me, and that she's going to help me feel better. Right. And so moms need to have those skills. They have to be able to listen and help their daughters through it, not dismiss it like it's not a big deal. That'll pass. It's not a big deal. It's okay. Brush it off. Um, we need to let them know that we get it and we feel their feelings. And a lot of times that's all that's needed in order for them to get through it.
Now, when on the younger side, we have this opportunity where we see our daughters, almost every day for the most part. And we have these moments, these car rides to have these conversations or even have these bonding moments. What are your thoughts, when as an adult, you're having a little resistance from your relationship with your mother, or just feel strained or having some struggles?
From the daughter's perspective.
Yeah, let's start with the daughter's perspective.
Okay. Um, I think, like I said before, daughters just want to feel heard. And we get into these rhythms with our moms, and it operates in a certain way. And often we feel disappointed by the outcome of, when we share our feelings and what's going on. And I would take a step back and slow down and let her know how you feel. A lot of times this comes out in like a big explosion, a weekend gone bad or a phone call gone wrong. And then everyone realizes, oh, there's been all this pain there. I shouldn't say everyone, maybe the mom realizes there's been all this pain there with my daughter and I had no idea. So I think daughters being able to say, look, mom, and again, they have to know what they need. I'm asking you for this. I'm sharing this with you, and this is what I need from you in return. Sometimes moms can't do that. Sometimes mom's absolute best is not being able to show up emotionally for their daughter, unfortunately, because most likely it wasn't done for them and they don't have the capacity and they haven't learned. The moms that I work with who didn't grow up with that and don't know how to do that are willing to learn, which is why they're working with me. They're willing to learn, how do I listen? How do I give my daughter what she needs? This is what her problem is. Like, how do I fix that? And it really is, it's about listening on the mother's side. It's really and truly understanding that your daughter's saying it because that's how she feels, not because she's trying to hurt you, not because she wants you to feel blamed, not because she wants you to feel guilty. And as mothers, we just have to take what they share as their truth, their experience in the relationship, whether we wanted them to feel that way or not. I said before about mothers sacrificing themselves for everybody, not just daughters. And another part that is really hard to start, probably you feel this too, Ashley, is blame. Mothers get blamed for everything that goes wrong. If I put, my daughter doesn't get what she wanted for lunch, or the internet's out, or whatever it is, right? It's my fault for whatever reason. We just, and that's just a silly example, but just in our culture, we get blamed too, right? If our kid has
It's always
mental
our
health
job to fix
issues.
it.
Yeah. I mean, it's just, yeah, it's our job to fix it. We should know that it was happening. How did we overlook that? So not only do we feel pressure from the outside world, we put pressure on ourselves. So then when our kid comes to us, or our adult daughter, and says, look, you've caused me all this pain and I'm not going to let it go. That's hard to hear, because we feel like, wow, I've just really sacrificed myself and done my best. But it's so important to push that aside and listen to what she's saying.
Now, I know you have a framework to work through obstacles and form a healthy lifelong attachment, which may help, across all age spans, starting this while your children are younger, which may support a better adult relationship. Can you go into a little bit more of your framework to work through obstacles?
Yeah. Well, I know I'm repeating myself, but it really is listening and understanding. Rashka Hasseldine, who is one of my mentors, she defined the mother-daughter attachment theory that you're speaking of. And what she says is that listening, a daughter needs to feel heard and understood in order to feel loved. It's really what's at the heart of it, is we want to feel like we want to know that our feelings are validated and our mom understands how we feel. And that's all it takes. She doesn't have to agree with us. She doesn't, have to tell us, okay, I get it. You're right. I'm wrong. She just wants to feel loved and understood. So it's really at the heart of it. And listening more and talking less is what's going to get you there. Being able to truly meet your daughter where she is. Like as a therapist, what I do now is I teach moms how to do that. I teach them my skills of how to listen to their daughters because we don't learn that any other way. And, it has a lot to do with validating how the daughter feels. Like when the daughter gets in the car at the end of the day and is melting down about, what she was experiencing at school, somebody was mean to her or betrayed her. She doesn't need her mom to say, I've had a really bad day too. I can't listen to this right now. Like moms, we have to be aware of our triggers. We have to be aware of like when we're reaching the edge and know like, I've got to show up for this kid right now. She needs me, right? This isn't about me. I've got to put my stuff to the side and talk to somebody who's on my team of support and be there for her right now. And whenever I teach moms this, they're always like, wow, that was a lot easier than what I've been doing because it doesn't involve solving the problem. It's just letting her talk and listening. And even if I said before, like, wow, that sounds really hard. Like that's what I would do with girls, right? I would just actively listen to what they were saying and point out how they felt. Wow, I get it. I see why you felt overwhelmed. I see why you felt embarrassed, right? And then when they stopped talking and stopped sharing about what happened, I would say, what do you want to do about it? I wouldn't tell her what to do, right? I wouldn't give her options and have her pick. I would ask her, what does she want to do? And, they would usually say, I don't know. And then if I was quiet, they might say, well, if I do this, this might happen. If I do that, that might happen. Right. And maybe she'd say, what do you think? And then I might give her an idea or what I think. And then I come back and say, what do you want to do about it? And she would pick. It wouldn't be me telling her what to do. Right. That's not what therapists do. We listen. So I teach moms how to do this and how to listen to their daughters and lead them to their own solution, right? So we're teaching them how to be resourceful, stand on their own 2 feet, feel confident in their approach. Then when she goes into school the next day, and if that approach didn't work, she's not coming home and saying, I did what you said and it didn't work, right? Because it was her idea. She's owning it. She's feeling confident about it. She's found the right word. She can stand behind what she's doing. And she all the whole time is just feeling supported by mom rather than being told what to do and feeling resentful or feeling I have to do this, right? It's coming from her. So active listening and meeting your daughter where she is and taking care of your own needs, making sure that you understand what you need emotionally and asking the right people for that and not relying on your daughter to fill that for you. Those are the 3 biggest things.
Those are very insightful tips, and I'm definitely going to take some of those for myself. Now, we talked a lot about how communication is key in a healthy relationship, but sometimes, it's difficult to communicate. Do you have a special time that you like to bring up, hard topics? I know, a lot of people try to use the dinner table, but sometimes I hate putting I don't want to say negative, but possibly negative reactions tied to specific events.
Mm.
like dinner time or, family time, but it also might be difficult to find a specific time to bring up, these conversations that need to be had.
Yeah. I honestly, I think it's just part of life. And you're right. Like when we know there's something that's hard to talk about, we sort of want to avoid it and not um, sacrifice the nice time that we have together to have a difficult conversation or to make our kids feel bad. Um, but I just think that talking about how we feel and what's happening is more important. So if you're bringing up something that's sensitive or something that needs to be like a serious conversation, I like having something like a family meeting where mom and dad or both parents are meeting with the child and everybody's slowing down and like, okay, what's going on? How are you feeling? What are the solutions? How are we going to work through this together as a team? Like you're meeting, that child where they are. Um, if it's just checking in with them about how they feel and what's happening in their life and staying in touch, every day, I love the dinner table for that. And I don't just ask about what was the best part of your day. I ask about what's the hardest part of your day so that they get comfortable talking about that, identifying what was difficult about their day. And then we all get to connect on that and support them, like their sibling included or siblings. So I think that when we talk about the hard things, it becomes more natural, becomes easier to do those kinds of things. And we tend to avoid them a little bit less. I also will share about a hard part of my day. It'll be something, not big and scary, of course, for my little kids, but I will share about something that was more difficult or something that was challenging or, stressful or, disappointed me or whatever. So it's important for all of us to hear each other. Like I said before, teenagers in the car works really well. Bedtime works really well. I know that's when my kids download about their day. And I have to build time in to hear all of that and to listen because they feel safe, they feel quiet, they're, reflecting on their day at that time. Um, and with teenagers, again, sometimes it's like late at night. A lot of times mom will tell me, I go to bed before she does. And then she comes in my room at 11 o'clock and wants to tell me all about everything that's happening. And I think, I get it. My sleep is precious too. But if that's when my kid's going to connect with me, I want to know what's happening in her world. Like if she's letting me in at 11 o'clock, I'll set my alarm so I'm awake and I'm ready to receive that. Because when we don't know what's happening, we can't help them. Right. And I always say that if you're not in conversation, you're not in relationship. Like if your kid or adult or, young kid is keeping you at a distance and not letting you into their world, there's not much of a relationship there.
Do you have any tips for opening up lines of communication for, those that are pulling back and not wanting to, share or really have trust in the mother-daughter relationship that is currently existing?
Yeah, I think if you're actively working on improving it, I think you let her know that. Um, to say directly, I know I've disappointed you in the past. I know you've told me, I've heard you tell me you're not getting what you need from me. I don't understand you. A lot of times, daughters are saying exactly what they want their moms to do or not do. And moms are dismissing it and feeling like that's not really what it is. Like that's actually what it is, right? She's telling you in some way what it is that she needs from you. And so if you're working on making it better, then to let her know that I'm serious about this and I really want this to be better. And something else just popped in my head I forgot to say before with teen girls, sometimes keeping a journal that you share back and forth is really great. Or writing text messages. Sometimes it's that they're more comfortable sharing how they feel in a message where they're not looking at you in the face. They can receive the message and, in their room. So sending text messages, and then the way the journal works is you have this dedicated journal between the two of you and you pass it back and forth. You each have a place where you put the journal for the other person. So maybe for the mom, it's on her pillow. Maybe for the daughter, it's on her nightstand, right? And so when they see the journal in that spot in their room, they know there's a message in there waiting for them. So that's one way that's non-confrontational. But I think, being able to ask how you feel, and if they don't want to talk about it, if they, shut you down, or if they're ignoring you, or they say like, I've already told you I'm not in the mood or whatever, to say, well, I'd really like to support you on this. I'd really like to know what's going on. Or I'd really love to know how you feel. And so whenever you're ready to talk about it, I'm ready to listen. So you give them that invitation to come to you when they're ready, when it's a better time for them to have the conversation. And if they never come, you're going to follow up and you're going to go back and say, when is a good time for us to have this conversation? I understand if it's maybe something you want to plan, or you need to feel comfortable, like, can we go for a walk? Or, but if it feels really important to you, it's important not to let it go.
And I think that is also a great way how mothers can show their daughters the uniqueness of a mother-daughter bond. Do you have any, tips on that? I love the journal idea, because there are some of these, heavier topic things that we, even as adults, aren't sometimes comfortable speaking to our children about. But I think they need to, this bond is so important. It's like, it not only sets the foundation for their life, but how they're going to continue, like you said, how they'll be a mother.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. I think, it becomes thinking about the other women in our family. It becomes, daughters learning about their moms as women, not just as moms. Like, I hosted a mother-daughter tea recently and was asking the younger girls, like, what's your mom's middle name? When's her birthday? Like, your mom isn't just a mom, right? She's a human who lived a whole life before you were born. And who is that person? And hopefully she still shows you who that person is. So I always loved hearing stories about my mom's life when she was a teenager, when she was a kid. I still really enjoy them. My daughter happens to enjoy them. I don't know if that's just the way we are, or if it's because we've always told those stories, but that is so important. It's important to talk about grandmothers, great grandmothers, great grandmothers, like who they were, how they lived their life, what was important about them, what was the legacy that they left, what were their dreams when they were kids. I think those are beautiful ways to connect. And sometimes we don't have the same interests as our daughters, right? And so then we have to bend a little bit to do things with them, and being able to have conversations about the women in our family, about the things they've done, about the dreams they've had, shows your daughter what's possible, like who she comes from, what kind of, skills or talents or traits they had, and maybe how that's part of her. I think it connects us in a deeper way than the everyday, moving through life and talking about what's happening at the moment.
And how has a mother impacted you and your views? Speaking about life before being a mom, and it's not our only identity, but I know it definitely does become us and change kind of who we are as people.
It does. It consumes us. And most of us were taught that it should consume us, right? Becoming a mom opened my eyes to a lot of things. It was just really how out of touch I got with myself as a woman, and how important that was, to continue to nurture the part of me that's a sister, a daughter, a friend, a wife, right? All of these other roles that I have, and making sure that I'm feeling satisfied in them too. It also opened my eyes to my own relationship with my mom, which I felt like was okay. I knew we struggled a little bit during, my teen years, which many mothers and daughters do. And I felt like, it'll get better. Like a lot of women do. It'll just get better as I get older. Moms think it'll get better as she gets older, right? And then I became a mom and realized this isn't really getting better. I need to work on this. And then combining that with everything I saw in my therapy practice with teen girls, girls who wouldn't let their moms come in the room to have conversations with them or let their moms know what's happening in their life, which was totally against how I worked. Moms sitting in the waiting room waiting for an invitation into the therapy room. I thought, there is something happening between mothers and daughters that I don't get and I need to understand. It's not something therapists learn about. I didn't learn anything about it. And I'm in psychology classes or family therapy classes, and learning about, like, diving into the research and reading everything I could find about the mother-daughter relationship gave me the answers to what we really need from each other. And it's helped me to heal my relationship with my mother, and it's really supported my relationship with my daughter. I can't imagine where I'd be if I didn't learn this. And it's helped me sort of save myself from getting overwhelmed by motherhood and sacrificing myself too much, which many of us do. So it's totally changed my life understanding this, and not really changing the trajectory of my life as a mother.
Yeah, it's like I said, it does consume us, this identity. So it's sometimes hard to, separate who we were and not get lost. We have talked about a lot of really important and great topics. We have received an abundance of questions. So we're going to jump into these a little bit earlier, because I want to make sure that we get as many of these answers as we can. So our first one was a anonymous question sent in. My daughter is rejecting me and does not want to speak to me. She is 13. Should I let her reach out to me?
Mm. I'm guessing that her daughter doesn't live with her, maybe, if she's waiting for her to reach out to her, but I would say no. I think that daughters need us no matter what stage of life they're in. They always need their mom. They always need their mom's love. Depending on what's happened and what pain is there, it'll be harder or easier to get in there. But I would say definitely reach out. Like, it comes from us. It all begins from us. And to continue to invite her into the relationship and work to understand what happened and what her pain is about.
Yeah, it's definitely, they say a mother's bond is something we forever need. Our next question: for daughters of divorce, are the conflicts seen later in teen and college years similar to daughters whose parents stayed married? With my now college age daughter, I've experienced the delay loyalty conflict, for lack of a better word.
Yes. I think that a daughter seeing conflict in any way, whether that's with her parents together or divorce, is stressful and causes split loyalty, makes them feel like they have to choose. I think it depends. It's hard to know whether it's better or the worse. I don't know how much of a difference it really makes if there's conflict between the parents. It splits a child into two. And so really listening to how your daughter feels and what she experienced is the way that you'll know what to do from there.
Our next question: what advice do you have when your daughter becomes a mother and wants space as you want to build a relationship with your grandchild?
Mm. I would ask her why she wants space without being intrusive. Is it because she wants, to focus on her building the family she's building? She wants more time to herself? Is it something about your dynamic that doesn't make her feel supported and it makes her feel more stressed when you're around? I would want to know what's underneath that. It is her own family. So if she's choosing to have more space because she wants to focus on them, then I would honor that if that's what she's saying she needs emotionally, right? A lot of times I see that mothers sometimes have conflict with their daughter's partner, And so that might be the reason for having more space. Maybe it doesn't really have that much to do about your daughter, but she's in a tough spot if her partner isn't wanting you around as much. I would ask your daughter to share with you honestly, and thank her for sharing with you when she does, and then go and process what she tells you if it's painful, with a therapist or a coach or something, and think about how to move forward to meet her needs.
And our next one, when you notice your child pulling away and hiding their feelings or not wanting to talk or work things out with you anymore, how do you manage the balance between independence and stepping into support?
Yeah, it's hard because you don't want to become annoying, and you don't want to feel like you're overbearing. And so what I would do is what I said before, is to say, I I understand that you want more space, you want to figure things out on your own. Um, Talking about how you feel isn't your favorite thing. As your mom, I want to be able to be here for you. I want to support you and how you're growing and what you're going through. And I want you to know that I'm here for you no matter what. I'm always here to listen to how you feel. Um, and if they aren't comfortable just jumping in, sharing about how they feel, find other ways to connect with them that are just easy. Like, let's walk the dog. Let's, you know, go, go to the park. Let's, whatever they like to do, go do those things. Just have fun with them. Right. And so when they start to connect with you again in that way and it feels good, that will create that safe container then for them to reach out to you and let you in.
Yeah, some of the best bonding moments definitely might be not during my own personal favorite activities, but definitely theirs, which does open up that, you know, sense of safety and enjoy, like when they're happy and enjoying, I feel like they just start to flow out with all their feelings.
Yeah.
And that kind of leads into our next question. How do you balance your needs as a parent for closeness, time together, sharing with the needs of, now they specifically said adult children, but I feel like this applies to all of space, privacy, independence.
Yeah. I I think that I think that you have to meet them where they are. And sometimes that means that um we have to work through our own feelings about what we think is appropriate, and ask yourself, why do you need more than your child? Is it because you're not getting it in other places? Sometimes, a lot of times that's what's happening, is mothers are demanding this time closeness, knowing everything that's going on in their child's life, because they're not getting it where they should be getting it from, which is their own mother, their partner, their friends, their team of support. um, and I would respect that, but also ask for what you need. It may be crossing their own boundaries that they've set up for themselves. So it's important to have a conversation about that. And I'd be interested to know. I know we don't get to talk to the people asking the questions, but I'd be interested to know if there's more than one child in that family that feels that way. Or is it something that you can get a little bit here from this one, a little bit here from the next one, and maybe they have a different level of need for you in their life.
Yeah. Um, Now we have, how do we prevent a codependent and parentified relationship with my daughter? She's 17 months old. And what books can I read, learn, and apply it? Unfortunately, I didn't get this growing up.
Great question, and I can tell this parent is going to get it right because they're determined to, even with a 17-month-old. How you can prevent that is having your own boundaries, um, paying attention to what you need and who's going to fill those needs, not putting that pressure on your daughter to do that, not giving her too much responsibility. Parentified relationships are children who feel responsible to take care of their parents. To be a parent, they have to rise to the occasion and be an adult. And so you won't put that on your daughter by understanding what you need and that it's not her responsibility to fill any of those needs, that you are there for her, and hopefully you're getting it somewhere else in order to feel fulfilled. As far as books, I mentioned Rashka Hasseldine before. I'm going to recommend her book. It's called The Mother-Daughter Puzzle, and you can look that up. It'll give you a lot of information about how to do this. It's much of what I shared today, obviously in a deeper level.
Yeah, definitely gonna look that up. Our next question is looking for specific recommendations regarding communications, such as frequency, modes via text or email or phone. I know we touched a little bit upon this of, doing what you and your daughter are definitely comfortable with. So maybe tips for figuring out what modes, of communication would be perfect for you, and kind of how frequent should you guys talk?
It depends on the kid's age. But if that kid's in your house, I want to talk to them every day. I want to know what's happening in their life, whether that's even just like a, quick connection in the morning, in the hallway, in the car. I want to talk every day. When they're out of your house, it looks different because they have a bigger, fuller life with a lot of things going on. And so then it might be once a week or a couple times a week. But again, it's hard for me to say how much is right because it depends on what your kid needs and how much you're getting from them, in those interactions that you're having. So ask them too.
Yeah. Our next question comes in. What do you do if adult daughter isn't talking or responding at all? Letters, gifts, I'm assuming phone calls, all unresponded to.
Mm. I work with a lot of moms in this position. It's so sad. Um, my I think it's so hard to answer because I don't have the specifics, but if your daughter shared with you why at some point, I need you to go back to that and think about what she said. Maybe you didn't agree with it. Maybe you dismissed it and thought it can't be that. She's got it all wrong. You have to go back to that and you have to honor that because that was her experience. That was her truth. Those are her feelings. That's the pain. Unless you address that, this might continue, right? There's something where your daughter's not feeling safe, or she's not that she'll be hurt, but that it just doesn't feel good. It's not fulfilling her and she's creating distance. So understanding what happened. I wouldn't necessarily stop with the gifts or the cards or, any of that unless it's really painful for you to do that. Because whether she's engaging with you or not, you always love her. And so as a daughter, I think it feels good to know that you're loved even from a distance, and that your mom is there ready to talk to you whenever you're ready to share what's happening. And if she hasn't shared with you, invite her to share and truly listen and honor her experience, and work with someone who can help you break it down and process what happened and protect your heart from feeling blamed for everything.
Yeah. And our next question, as you move through time, does it ever become a bit more balanced on the listening and understanding between the mother and the daughter?
Mm. I think it does, but here's what happens as our daughters get older, they get fuller lives and they have more responsibilities themselves, right? They might have their own kids, they have their partner, they have a lot of people in their life they're taking care of. So honestly, the care always goes from mother to daughter. So yes, you want your daughter to listen to you, but it's not going to look like you being able to call her after, a conflict with a friend and being able to vent to her and put all of that on her. It really that has to go to somebody else because it does get the relationship out of whack where now your daughter feels responsible for your emotions. And as the adult, as the mother, you have to be responsible for your own and get the support in other places. But you can have really beautiful relationships with your adult daughters where you're having fun, you're having deep conversations, and having interesting time together, but it may not be your daughter being able to help you feel better.
And what about when the mother is elderly? Is it still appropriate for the mother to have emotional needs that her daughter can meet?
Appropriate? No. Does it happen? Yes, because most mothers don't realize that that's not healthy. Um, it's still not a daughter's responsibility for those emotional needs. Maybe health needs, physical needs, getting her to the doctor, those kinds of things, but um, not to take care of her emotionally.
And our next question, what do you do if the women in your extended family aren't positive narratives? The trajectory has to be changed.
I think you can learn from that. I think your daughter, I think it would involve thinking about how you can share this, but to share about the struggle that the women had in your family and why. Because when I do this, and I talk to my clients about the history of the women in their family, we can almost always connect what happened to the women to a man, and to something that happened to them, that was caused because they didn't have a voice, because they didn't have their own rights, because they didn't learn, because they were influenced by somebody. I think there's always something you can learn, and change based on understanding their story. And I would try to balance it out as much as you can with anything at all you can find that's positive, about that woman. But either way, you can absolutely learn from the really difficult parts of your family history too.
Yeah, I think it's really important to take all those different relationships and decide how that affects you and how you want those relationships to kind of form how you're a mom. Our last question for today, can you share some of the resources that you've read regarding the mother-daughter relationship that have improved things for you? And I know we're also, with that, while you share, they're going to share some of your links into the chat, of some of your amazing blogs and things.
Oh, thank you. Yeah. So I have a course, where I teach mothers, how to do it differently and all about the mother-daughter relationship and how they can change what's happening. Some of the books I read absolutely supported my work. They didn't necessarily help me change or heal my relationships. That was working with professionals. And so I just want to be clear on that. I didn't read a book and be able to apply all of that change. But some of the books I would recommend is the one I already did, The Mother-Daughter Puzzle. When we were talking about mother blame, there's a really great book, a lot of research by Paula Kaplan. The book is called Mother Blame. And Mother-Daughter Wisdom by Christiane Northrup is another great book. It's a lot of reading. It's a lot of heavy reading. So, you can get most of those on audiobook as well, but it will be a really great, strong place to start in your journey.
Awesome. And thank you all for joining us today. And thank you so much, Hilary, for your time and sharing all your insights with us. It is definitely great tips and tricks for navigating these difficult relationships at times. Before we go, I'm just going to share a couple slides. First is Meetup is now on TikTok. Check out and follow us. Our handle is @Meetup!! We post some really fun and engaging content that you won't want to miss out. And as a reminder, you can view a recap of this event in a few days on our Community Matters blog at meetup.com/blog. Thanks again, everyone, for joining us, and I hope everyone has a great Mother's Day.